When society collapses, survival doesn't come down to who spent years stockpiling supplies or perfecting homesteading skills. It comes down to how you act in the first 72 hours. These critical hours are a brutal filter. They decide who makes it and who doesn't. The rule of 72 isn't about thriving in some distant future apocalypse. It's about what happens when the thin veneer of order shatters and chaos takes over faster than most people can react. Picture this. Within minutes of a major SHTF event, panic starts to ripple through the population. Emergencies magnify fear, which turns into desperation. Grocery stores are cleaned out, gas stations are overrun, and law enforcement quickly becomes overwhelmed. Infrastructure that holds society together starts to crumble. The larger the city, the faster the collapse. People who wait for direction during this time, they won't make it. But here's the hard truth. You don't have the luxury of deliberating or leaning on the comfort of long-term preps. Those bunkers, supplies, and skills are useless if you can't survive the immediate chaos. The first 72 hours are all about quick decisions, adapting on the fly, and staying one step ahead of the masses descending into hysteria. This is the reality of the rule of 72. It's not about long-term survival. It's an urgent fight to survive the moment society stops working. If you don't move fast, think logically, or take decisive action, no prep in the world will save you. What you do in those first hours determines if you live to see the next day. Period. But Louis fails first in a societal breakdown. When society collapses, it doesn't do so neatly or slowly. It unravels in a terrifying, rapid sequence. What people often fail to understand is how interconnected our systems are. When one fails, it drags the others down with it, leaving nothing but chaos in its wake. Understanding what fails first during a societal breakdown can mean the difference between life and death during those critical 72 hours. There's no sugarcoating this. If you don't act fast, survival won't be an option. 1. The power grid is the first domino to fall. The power grid is the backbone of modern civilization. It keeps the lights on, the refrigerators running, and the internet alive. But when widespread catastrophe strikes, electricity is usually the first thing to go. Whether it's severe weather, cyber attacks, or societal chaos, the grid is fragile. One failure triggers another, leading to massive outages that spread like wildfire. When the power dies, so does refrigeration. That means your perishable foods are on a ticking clock. Forget the freezer keeping your meat solid, or the fridge preserving milk and eggs. Within hours, those staples start to spoil. And don't count on getting information from TV or phones. Without electricity, communication becomes patchy at best and non-existent at worst. Cities plunge into darkness, and the psychological impact alone leads to panic. The lack of electricity also brings physical danger. With no streetlights or alarms, crime flourishes. People trapped in elevators, hospitals running out of backup power, and those dependent on medical devices are the first casualties. The system's collapse is quick, unforgiving, and just the beginning. 2. The water supply stops flowing. Most people don't realize how much the water supply depends on electricity until it's too late. Water treatment plants and pumping stations need power to function. Once the grid is down, clean drinking water quickly becomes a relic of the past. Tap water runs for a few hours, or if you're lucky, a day. Then, nothing. Now you've got a double-edged problem. Not only is fresh water unavailable, but the sanitation infrastructure starts breaking down. Toilets stop flushing, and wastewater systems back up. Hygiene becomes a luxury you can't afford, and disease spreads quickly in close quarters. If you think a lack of water is just an inconvenience, think again. Dehydration sets in fast and kills faster than starvation. The first 72 hours are critical because this is when people start fighting over every last resource. Bottled water disappears from store shelves in minutes, and in densely populated areas, water violence is almost a guarantee. The most basic human necessity becomes a life-or-death struggle. 3. Food supply vanishes overnight. While the power grid and water system are crumbling, food supply chains collapse in parallel. Grocery stores rely on just-in-time inventory systems, meaning they only stock a few days' worth of food at any given time. Add a dose of mass panic, and those shelves are stripped bare within hours. Forget restocking. Delivery trucks won't even be able to reach urban areas due to gridlock, fuel shortages, or outright danger on the roads. Without refrigeration, perishable foods in homes and warehouses spoil quickly, further shrinking the available supply. People rarely prepare for this reality. Sure, you might have canned goods or non-perishables stored, but think beyond your kitchen pantry. What happens when your neighbors realize they've run out of food on day 2? Desperation makes people reckless and violent. The cascading failure of food availability leads to widespread societal unrest. Hungry people don't act rationally. They form mobs, raid stores, and loot homes. Those stuck in cities with no access to foraging or hunting options are the worst hit. By the time long-term survival strategies like growing your own food become relevant, you may not even make it past the initial wave of chaos. Or, at Law & Order, spiral out of control. If there's one thing societal collapse does better than anything else, it's exposing how razor-thin the line between civilization and anarchy really is. Law enforcement, emergency responders, and medical workers are integral to maintaining order. But they're human too. Once SHTF, they have their own families to protect. You can bet many of them won't be showing up to work, even in the best-case scenario where emergency services remain operational in the early hours. They'll be overwhelmed almost instantly. The sheer volume of emergencies, combined with communication breakdowns, ensures they can't keep up. The result? Chaos. Panic creates a feedback loop. People turn to looting, arson, and opportunistic crimes because they know law enforcement is stretched too thin. Gangs seize this moment to assert control, knowing no one is coming to stop them. Without a functional justice system, survival shifts into self-defense mode. You're on your own, and any notion of fairness or reason is tossed out the window. By the third day of collapse, even those clinging to some hope of societal recovery will begin to lose faith. Trust evaporates, and it becomes every man for himself. This is where the spiral becomes nearly impossible to stop. Signs of a larger collapse. When society begins to fall apart, it doesn't take a crystal ball to see the signs of a larger collapse. They're glaring, unavoidable, and come in a brutal sequence. If you fail to recognize them early, you won't stand a chance when the situation spirals. Here's the truth. Power outages, water supply failures, and disappearing law enforcement aren't everyday inconveniences. They're massive red flags that the system you rely on is crumbling beneath your feet. First, the power goes out. At first, you might shrug it off as a minor issue. But when hours turn into days, you know something is seriously wrong. Streetlights die, refrigerators stop working, and communication systems become useless. The power grid collapsing isn't just about darkness. It's the first crack in the foundation of modern infrastructure. Then comes water. Nothing highlights society's fragility more than water shortages. Power outages cripple water treatment plants and pumping stations, leaving you with dry taps in no time. Without water, sanitation fails. Hygiene goes out the window, diseases start spreading, and desperation creeps in. Bottled water disappears instantly, and fights over this most basic resource flare up everywhere. Finally, law enforcement dissolves into irrelevance. Police and emergency responders are either overwhelmed or have abandoned their posts to care for their own families. Calls for help go unanswered, and you're left to fend for yourself. Looting and violence replace order as panic sweeps the streets. When law enforcement fades, you know the collapse is no longer coming, it's here. The sooner you spot these signs, the faster you can act. Waiting for someone to fix it isn't an option. The rule of 72 doesn't allow for hesitation. Recognizing the collapse early might be the only thing that saves you. Don't miss the warning shots. Human behavior during collapse. When society collapses, the real threat isn't just the failure of systems, it's human behavior. People aren't wired to handle the rapid breakdown of everything they rely on. Their reactions unfold in predictable stages, each more dangerous than the last. If you want to survive an SHTF scenario, you need to understand how people behave when the world falls apart. Spotting these patterns early is your key to staying ahead of the chaos. Stage 1. Calm confusion. The first stage of collapse is calm confusion. This is the brief, deceptive window where people still cling to the idea that everything will be fine. When the power goes out, most assume it's just a temporary glitch. When water stops flowing, they think the city will fix it soon. This denial clouds judgment, leaving the majority paralyzed in inaction while the collapse snowballs. This confusion stems from modern dependence on systems we hardly notice. We've been conditioned to trust that someone is always in charge, that someone will step in and fix things. When those fixes don't come, most people don't panic right away. Instead, they freeze, trying to process the unthinkable. This is your moment to act. While others sit in disbelief, trying to contact utility companies or scrolling for news updates, you should already be moving. Confusion in the masses buys you precious time. Use it. Gather supplies, secure your location, and prepare for what's coming. Don't get lulled into the same false sense of security that traps everyone else. Stage 2. Fear and desperation. Once the reality begins to sink in, confusion morphs into fear. This is when the herd mentality takes over. People start rushing to grocery stores, gas stations, and ATMs, hoping to grab whatever they can. Panic buying sets in, stripping shelves and siphoning fuel in record time. If you're still out there shopping with the masses at this point, you've already lost your edge. Empty shelves lead to full-blown desperation once people realize the system isn't coming back online. Banks are closed, ATMs run out of cash and credit cards stop working. Jobs, money, and even promises of future aid become meaningless overnight. Parents will do whatever it takes to feed their kids. The same neighbor who waved to you last week might now be eyeing your supplies. The fear spreads faster than the actual collapse. Water is gone, power is out, but the real fuel for the chaos is the sudden awakening of millions of people to the fact that they're on their own. Desperation leads them to irrational decisions. They'll wait hours in gas lines, loot convenience stores, and even risk injury just to get their hands on anything they think they might need. Survival at this stage is all about staying out of sight and one step ahead. You don't want to be in the middle of a gas station riot just to fill your tank. The best move is to already be where you need to be, stocked with the essentials to keep you going through the worst. This is where being decisive early makes the difference. The people who acted during the calm confusion phase are already tucked away, safe and out of reach, while everyone else is losing their minds in the chaos. Stage 3. Violence and chaos. Desperation has a short timeline. Once resources are gone and people realize there's nothing left to grab, the gloves come off. Stage 3 is where fear turns to rage and chaos takes over. The rule of law is gone. Police are nowhere to be seen, and the streets belong to whoever is strongest. At this point, society no longer feels like society. Roving groups start forming as strength in numbers becomes a survival strategy. Gangs take over stretches of cities, robbing or killing to secure food, water, and territory. By now, it's every man for himself. If you're unlucky enough to still be in a populated area, you'll witness the full collapse of humanity firsthand. This stage is where moral boundaries dissolve quickly. That friendly neighbor is now a potential threat. Families go to war over scraps, homes are raided, and no one can be trusted. Desperation drives people to do things they never thought they were capable of just days before. The line separating good and bad doesn't exist anymore. All that matters is who stays alive. If you think your stockpile of supplies is safe, think again. This is why acting early matters so much. You want to avoid being a target when mobs are roaming the streets looking for their next meal. Drawing attention to yourself is a death wish. The smart move is to stay low, stay hidden, and protect your resources at all costs. Those who fail to recognize the escalation until this stage rarely survive it. By the time violence and lawlessness take over, your options are reduced to fight or flight, and even then, the odds are against you. Immediate survival priorities. When society collapses, there's no time for second chances. The first 72 hours are the critical make-or-break period where every decision matters. Forget about the long term and focus on the now, or you're not going to make it. Basic survival comes down to 4 priorities that will dictate whether you live or die within those first few days. Water, heat, communication, and security. Miss any one of these, and you've essentially signed your own death sentence. Here's the blunt breakdown of what you need to do. Act fast or don't act at all. 1. No water is non-negotiable. The human body can survive weeks without food, but only 3 days without water. If you're not prioritizing water immediately, you've already lost the game. The moment the power goes out and water stops flowing from your taps, it's no longer a convenience. It's your #1 mission. Secure every ounce of water you can find. Start by filling every available container before pressure in the lines completely drops. Sinks, bathtubs, pots, pans, empty bottles, buckets, it doesn't matter. Get creative and act fast. Once it's gone, it's gone. If you didn't catch the wave in time, or you're stuck with questionable water, filter and purify it before drinking. Having water purification tablets, portable filtration systems, or even just boiling capabilities can mean the difference between life and death. Don't think you can wing it with stream water or puddles. That's the quickest way to destroy your body with bacteria and parasites during a time when medical help isn't an option. And if by now you're not sold on how hard water scarcity hits, consider this. Dehydration kills faster than hunger or danger in most collapse scenarios. Your physical and mental sharpness will evaporate without it. Secure water first, and secure it fast. 2. Heat equals survival. The second you're wet, cold, or exposed to bad weather is the second you're in serious trouble. Hypothermia doesn't just happen out in the wilderness, it can hit inside your own home when the heat system fails and the temperature plummets. Without warmth, your body burns through energy fast, and before you know it, it's shutting down. Start by gathering everything that can help insulate you. Blankets, sleeping bags, jackets, and thick clothing should be immediately accessible. If you have time, grab extra layers from closets, neighbors, or even abandoned stores, but this is only if conditions outside are safe to move. Now, don't just rely on layering. Focus on retaining heat where you'll be sleeping or sheltering. Seal off cracks in windows and doors using whatever you've got on hand. Crumpled newspaper, towels, or even plastic wrap can make a major difference. Heating one smaller room is more efficient than failing to heat your entire house. Once you pick a space, stick to it. When it comes to external heat sources, fuel is everything. Collect wood for fires, propane for burners, even candles for light and heat. But be cautious with open flames in poorly ventilated spaces to avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. Finally, don't underestimate how body heat keeps people warm. If you're with family or trusted people, huddle together to conserve energy. Cold kills silently and quickly, so you better make heat priority number 2, right after water. 4. When communication saves lives. You might think cutting yourself off from the world is the best way to ride out the storm. Wrong. Without communication, you're blind to what's happening around you. You'll be guessing in the dark. And that's the last thing you want when resources are vanishing, mobs are forming, and the collapse is escalating. Communication keeps you informed and gives you options. Ignore it at your own risk. Start with a battery-powered or hand-crank radio. It could be your only link to emergency broadcasts or critical updates from authorities. Don't expect TV or smartphone services to stick around once the power grid fails. Radios, on the other hand, are designed to work when everything else falls apart. Tune in, listen up, and adjust your plans as needed. Make sure you have a stash of batteries specifically for your radio, flashlight, or any other emergency devices. No batteries? Work with solar chargers or hand-crank tech. Keep every communication device packed or clipped where you can grab it instantly. Signaling tools aren't just for camping trips. Think whistles, flares, mirrors, or even banging pots together. These are your simplest ways of attracting attention if you're in distress, or if someone is nearby who can help. The truth is, survival doesn't thrive in isolation. Stay informed and connected to the bigger picture, or you'll be caught off guard when things inevitably take another nosedive. 4. Perimeter security isn't optional. Once desperation hits, people become outright dangerous. They aren't cruel by nature, but survival instinct flips a switch in everyone. Desperate people aren't looking out for morality or decorum. They're hunting for resources, and if you have them, you're a target. That's why priority number 4 is security. If you can't protect yourself, what's the point of stocking water, food, or heat? Start with the basics. Lock every door and window, even if you're still inside. Then make it harder for anyone to break in. Barricade windows with furniture, boards, or anything heavy enough to withstand some force. Reinforce doors by jamming them with rods, brackets, or improvised tools. Do not advertise your presence. Keep lights out, cover windows, and avoid activities like loud conversations or fires that signal you're around. The less attention you attract, the better off you'll be. Establish a lookout system if you're with a group. Take shifts so someone is always watching the property. If you notice threats early, you'll have the tactical advantage. Have a plan for what to do if someone approaches, whether it's negotiation, deterrence, or escape. Lastly, be ready for self-defense. It's not about playing superhero, it's about protecting yourself if all else fails. Weapons like pepper spray, bats, or kitchen knives can give you a fighting chance. Ideally, you'll never have to use them, but this isn't an ideal scenario. Prepare accordingly. The blunt reality is this: survival in a societal collapse means everyone outside your bubble is a potential danger. Securing your perimeter isn't negotiable. It's survival one. Gathering and verifying information. When the world starts to spiral into chaos, information becomes just as valuable as water, food, or security. Without reliable information, you're flying blind in a storm, and that's a deadly gamble. The Rule of 72 teaches us that those first critical hours are your one and only chance to get ahead of the collapse. Gathering and verifying information isn't optional. It's the difference between survival and becoming another body in the pile. The collapse of communication networks happens fast. Internet access vanishes, news media goes dark, cell towers stop transmitting. That's not a guess. That's reality in any grid-down scenario. Here's how to keep yourself in the loop without relying on systems that will betray you when you need them most. Alternative communication methods. Your post-apocalypse smartphone isn't going to cut it. Once the power grid goes down, cell networks and internet connections will follow. Don't expect to scroll your feed to figure out what's happening. If you're still glued to your dead phone for answers, you're already failing the information game. You need tools designed to work when everything else crumbles. Ham radios. Ham radios are the gold standard for survival communication. They operate independently of the power grid, and, unlike your cell phone, they don't rely on third-party networks to function. If you've got a ham radio set up and a little bit of know-how, you're suddenly plugged into a world of real-time, unfiltered updates. The beauty of ham radios is their reach. You can monitor broadcasts from other operators near and far, gather intel on what's happening in your immediate area, and even communicate if needed. Think of them as your lifeline to information when all traditional systems have failed. But don't wait for the collapse to figure out how they work. Practice now. Learn how to tune frequencies and identify reliable channels before you're forced to rely on them under pressure. Police scanners. If you think law enforcement is spared from the chaos, you're dead wrong. They get overwhelmed like everyone else. But while they're still functioning, their communications can provide critical insights. Police scanners allow you to eavesdrop on real-time discussions among officers and emergency responders. You'll know what areas are becoming hotspots for crime, which routes are blocked, and whether any emergency services are still operating nearby. Listening to a scanner during the first stages of a breakdown gives you a street-level view of the chaos around you. If something's happening in your area, the scanner will probably pick it up before anything else. Combine that with what you're hearing through your ham radio, and you've got a solid start to understanding the situation. The downside? Information from police scanners can be raw and unfiltered. It's your job to make sense of it. Keep a cool head and don't act on every single transmission you hear. Cross-check information. Misinformation is faster than the actual collapse. Panic has a way of distorting reality, and during periods of uncertainty, people cling to anything that sounds like an answer, even when it's dead wrong. Trusting the wrong intel can lead you straight into danger instead of saving you from it. That's why cross-checking every bit of information is crucial. Multiple sources. No single source holds the full truth. If your ham radio gives you one perspective and your police scanner reports another, dig deeper rather than blindly trusting one. Comparing notes from multiple sources gives you a more accurate picture. Just because someone broadcasts it doesn't make it the gospel truth. Be skeptical of loudmouths and doomsday prophets hogging the airwaves. Some people thrive on spreading fear, confusion, or outright lies during a crisis. Their misinformation isn't just annoying, it's dangerous. Question every bit of intel before acting on it, and always look for patterns between different channels. When multiple sources loosely corroborate a detail, you can treat it with more weight. Situational misinformation. Watch out for the rumor mill created by scared people who don't know what's happening. Maybe someone claims there's a supply cache near you, or that authorities are giving out aid. Acting on rumors without verifying them could end with you walking into a trap, wasting precious resources, or risking your safety in a chaotic area. Treat rumors like landmines. They might blow everything up if you're careless. Environmental awareness. Not every answer will come from gadgets and broadcasts. Staying alive means sharpening your senses and paying attention to the world around you. The environment doesn't lie, but most people are too distracted or untrained to notice what it's telling them. Sounds. Listen carefully to your surroundings. Gunshots, shattered glass, or raised voices mean trouble is close. If you hear barking dogs or shouting, it's almost always a sign of activity, whether it's people in distress, looting, or worse. If things have fallen eerily silent in an area that's normally loud, you need to find out why. Silence can mean everyone has evacuated, or it might mean danger is lurking nearby. Wildlife behavior. Animals are more tuned into environmental cues than humans. If you see wildlife moving in an unusual way or fleeing from a certain direction, take note. Birds taking flight all at once? That's a clue something big is happening nearby. Look for warning signs in natural behavior and adapt. Weather and landscape. Pay close attention to environmental changes. A sudden change in weather can make a bad situation worse. Flooding, structural damages caused by earthquakes, or a fire creeping too close can all escalate quickly if you're not watching. Staying blind to your immediate surroundings is a rookie mistake that could cost you your life. Learn to read the land as well as you do man-made warning signs. Make information your weapon. Knowledge is power, especially in survival mode. The more accurate and timely your information, the fewer mistakes you'll make. The people who survive aren't the ones who wait for CNN to come back online and spoon-feed them updates. They're the ones who grab their radios, listen to the streets, and act decisively. Your focus during the Rule of 72 is to stay ahead of the crowd. While others scramble for answers, you'll already know where the risks and opportunities lie. Ham radios, police scanners, multiple verification methods, and a sharp awareness of your environment will give you the critical edge you need to survive. Don't waste time guessing or trusting everything you hear. Seek out information, question it, cross-check it, and adapt accordingly. Those who hesitate waste time. Those who misjudge get caught in the chaos. Make your information reliable and act fast. That's the difference between surviving and not. Common mistakes to avoid. When the collapse hits, survival boils down to making the right decisions quickly. You don't have the luxury of trial and error, and mistakes during the first 72 hours can kill you outright. The Rule of 72 doesn't just highlight what you need to do, it also offers a sobering reminder of what not to do. Here are the most common mistakes that people make in a societal breakdown. Avoid them at all costs, or you'll add your name to the growing casualty list. Leaving home too soon. The biggest mistake? Assuming you need to leave your home immediately after a collapse. Wrong. Your home is your best chance of survival during those first critical hours. It's your shelter. It's where your resources are. It's a known environment you can control, fortify, and defend. Leaving it unnecessarily is basically gambling with your survival. Here's the reality out there after a collapse. Chaos, panic, and people already losing their minds. Empty stores, closed roads, desperate mobs and opportunists looking for easy targets. Do you really want to throw yourself into that mess? The key is patience. Unless staying put puts your life in direct immediate danger, think fire, flooding, or a crumbling structure, don't pack up and go. Plan your moves carefully. Gather intel, reinforce your home, and wait for the chaos to settle into predictable patterns before you even think about venturing out. Wandering off into a world that's falling apart is a rookie move. Until you're sure of what you're stepping into, stay where you are and make your home as secure and livable as possible. The streets will still be out there later, still just as dangerous. But you might not be alive to face them if you step out too soon. Relying on dead systems. Hope is great, but blindness will kill you. One of the most deadly mistakes people make is assuming that help is on its way. They sit around waiting for government aid, emergency crews, or the restoration of utilities like power and water. Here's the truth no one wants to admit in a collapse scenario. No one is coming to save you. That might sound harsh, but it's reality. Emergency services will be overwhelmed within minutes. Supply chains will break. Power won't magically come back just because you want it to. The systems you've spent a lifetime relying on are gone, and there's no telling when they'll return. Instead of sitting in the dark waiting for an ambulance, a tanker truck, or the grid to hum back to life, focus on what you can control. Prepare to be self-reliant. Secure water. Establish a means to cook food without power, and rely on alternative forms of communication like ham radios. Living off dead systems is a shortcut to starvation, dehydration, and panic. The faster you accept that no one's coming for you, the faster you'll put a plan in place to survive on your own terms. If the cavalry shows up, great, but don't bet your life on it. Hoarding. Non-essentials. Desperation makes people stupid. During a collapse, people rush to grab everything in sight, stuffing shopping carts and shoving unnecessary junk into their homes. Here's the brutal truth about the hoarding frenzy you've seen in disasters before. Most of what they're grabbing is useless. When survival's on the line, nobody needs 70 rolls of toilet paper, 18 bags of chips, or a cart full of frozen TV dinners that won't last without power. Hoarding non-essentials is a colossal waste of energy, time, and space. Worse, it distracts you from securing the resources that actually matter. Focus on the essentials, water first and foremost. If you don't have a way to store it or purify it, that should be your only priority. Next up is food, not junk food or anything with a short shelf life. Stockpile non-perishables that are calorie-dense, long-lasting, and require minimal preparation. Then there's security. Self-defense isn't a luxury in a collapse scenario. It's a necessity. Everything else is noise. Do you need amenities eventually? Sure. But the first 72 hours are about survival, not comfort. Hoarding piles of useless junk is dead weight that will slow you down physically and mentally. Don't fall into the trap. Overestimating your own abilities. Here's a harsh reality check. Most people overestimate what they can do in a survival situation. They think they'll forage for food, hike miles with a heavy pack, or defend themselves like action heroes when the time comes. Guess what? Without training or preparation, they won't. The first 72 hours aren't the time for fantasies. If you've never held a firearm, never purified water, or never dealt with first-hand violence, then don't assume you're a pro just because you watched a YouTube video once. Be realistic about your skills. Work with what you know and those around you who can fill the gaps. Adapting means acknowledging your weaknesses, not pretending they don't exist. Acting like you're invincible is one of the fastest ways to land yourself in a deadly situation. Keep your survival strategies grounded in what you can actually achieve. Ignoring the clock. The rule of 72 doesn't just suggest time is critical. It screams it. Yet people still drag their feet in denial or shock, while the situation worsens around them. Lingering in confusion during the first hours of collapse is a mistake you can't afford to make. The clock is ticking. Chaos escalates with every passing minute. Resources vanish, and the danger around you grows exponentially. The first 72 hours aren't just any 72 hours.